Someone once told me that when you meet a parent of a child with special needs, you meet a different class of people, and I definitely believe that in the people that I've met tonight. In 2007, most people think of that as the year that we went to the World Series and how great it must have been to be in the Schilling home. But in reality, I knew something was different. My kids were in school, and Kurt was at the ballpark. He would go to the ballpark at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and when he came home, the kids would be in bed. And I kept saying to Kurt, I don't understand. There's something different about Grant. And he would say to me, he needs more discipline. He doesn't respect you. And you can imagine how that felt to be a mother. I knew that something was different about Grant when I would walk into a parking lot. It's his hand that I would reach for because I wasn't sure that he wasn't going to take off. And in the summer of 2007, I sent him to camp for 5 days with my daughter, and every day she would come home and say the camp counselors told him to not do something, and he would do it. And I just couldn't understand why he couldn't just listen to the rules. Why is it when I said to him to stop doing something, he kept doing it and would even giggle at me, and it would make me infuriated that I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do as a parent and take that voice one level higher, because when I got madder and I got louder, that meant business. But when you said that to my son Grant, he would start to giggle, and I couldn't understand it. And I took him to the neurologist in the summer of 2007, and as like most things when you're in baseball, my husband was on the road, and I went into the doctor's appointment. I was expecting ADHD. In fact, I thought if I opened up the book and looked up ADHD, Grant's picture would be right beside it, because he never walked into a room. He jumped, he skipped, and he used you as the wall to stop wherever he was going. When I picked him up from that initial appointment, I've never seen the doctor so disheveled in my life as this woman was when I picked him up. And I said to her, as I had said many times when Grant had been involved in anything, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. And she said that she had never worked so hard to do a test for ADHD in her life. I giggled, I went home, and the next week I went into the appointment. What I expected was ADHD. What I got was the spectrum of autism. I can't even tell you what that was like to hear that come out of his mouth. And all I could think was, what does that mean? What does that mean? I had played baseball with many kids who had autism. My son didn't have autism. I thought, how could he have autism? He talks, he goes to school. The kids I knew with autism rocked back and forth. I didn't know that the spectrum was so big. I got on a plane and I flew to my husband, and he opened the door in Chicago, and he said, what's wrong? It was all over my face. I was so sad that I couldn't be hugged. I needed somebody to hug me. I couldn't pick my arms up to wrap around someone. And he said, what's the matter? I said, he's on the spectrum of autism. And I took that deep breath thinking, how's he gonna react? And he said to me, it all makes sense now. And I was so relieved. But then the other part of me wanted to punch him, because for the past 6 months, I've been saying over and over again, something's really different. I can remember that first IEP meeting like it was yesterday. I didn't want to take anybody. I just wanted to go in and hear. The minute I sat down, I cried uncontrollably, because this was it. My child was different. And that was the guarantee. That was the note that said, yes, he's different. I'm sitting in an IEP meeting. And the principal of the school reached across, held my hand, and said, you're going to be okay. We're going to take care of him. And I can remember most people go and they read everything they can about autism, everything they can about Asperger's syndrome, but I couldn't. I wanted the comic book version. I would read a little bit and I would shut down. And I read enough to know that in 2007, when we went to the World Series, that this was probably one of the last World Series that we would ever be involved in. So we took the kids. We have 4 of them. We have a son, a daughter, Grant, and a younger son. And we went to the game, and one of the things I had learned that Grant didn't like surprises. He needed things to be explained, which all made sense why I could never take Grant to a baseball game. If I took him to a game, he'd rock back and forth. It was too much motion, but I didn't know that at the time. Autistic kids usually love statistics. I had the only son probably who had access to every baseball statistic in the world and could care less about it. I remember forcing Kurt to take Grant to a baseball game before him. One of the perks is that you get to go to the ballpark with your dad at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Grant was there about 30 minutes, and Kurt called me and said, "You got to come get him." And I said, "No way. You need to bond with him. He needs to be at the ballpark." You know how superstitious players are? Grant was in everyone's locker, moving stuff around. Big Poppy was on the table, getting worked out. Grant was yelling, "When is it my turn?" So it was probably best that I went to get him. So we're at the World Series, and what I'd learned is he doesn't like surprises, and my parents, who are here tonight with my aunt and uncle and my friend Sue, took Grant into the back room during the game, and in the 9th inning he came out, he stood beside me, and I explained to him what was going to happen, because I had been at a World Series in 2004, so I was pretty familiar at that time with what was going to happen. And I said, "Grant, it's going to get, in 2 more outs, it's going to get really loud. You might see a lot of flashes going off, some fireworks, but this is what's going to happen." So I counted down the 3, the 2, the 1. The lights go off, and as I'm thinking, I've never been able to sit with him at a game, I'm going to turn and look, and either I'm going to see a child under the seat, or I have no idea what I'm going to see. And I look over, and there's no one jumping higher than Grant in the stadium. And I realize at that point, I can do this. And we go onto the field, and the kids are running around, taking pictures with all the celebrities and the players, and I look out, and there's Grant in the outfield. And he's watching himself on the Fanavision. He's just running back and forth and back and forth. And at that point, I realized that 30 seconds in the stand was my moment with Grant. I didn't need to get more. I didn't need for him to enjoy what was on the field. This was his world, and I had to learn to live in it. It took me about a year to come to grips with how life was going to be different and what kind of a mother that I thought I was going to be and what kind of a mother I needed to be for Grant. And I decided after Kurt had retired that he was coaching a baseball team. Now keep in mind, he has never been to a baseball game because he was always at the baseball park. So anybody who knows anything about the Little League draft, the guys and the dads, and you can say you don't, but you do. You watch every kid and how much he's growing, if he's swinging, is he getting more athletic? So Kurt goes into the draft, and I know they're going to eat him alive. He's going to get the kids because he has no idea, and they're just going to have fun with Kurt at this draft. So he comes home, and he hands me the list, and I take it, and I said, "Do you know who this is?" And he said, "I don't know who it is, but I've never seen grown men act this way." He said, "No one wanted him, no one would take him," and I said, "Give him to me." And I said, "Kurt, he has Asperger's syndrome." And that was a gut check moment for us as parents to know that that's probably what other people thought of our child. And the first Asperger's Association of New England had their event, and I thought it was time to talk. Because I wanted Grant to grow up to have the life that he deserved, the chance that he deserved. He learned different. We all know kids who had Asperger's but didn't have a name to it when we were in school. Our kids are blessed because they get to go to school with all kinds of different people. It's us, the ones who didn't, who are afraid of different. My kids aren't afraid of different anymore. And that's a blessing and a lesson that no teacher can ever be trained to teach our kids. And so I spoke at that event, and as I'm walking out, there's a woman, and she can't get her words together enough to talk to me. And I walked over to her and I said, "You have a child with Asperger's." And she just shook her head and cried yes. And I gave her a hug, and I said, "You're going to be okay." And that's what I needed, and that's why I needed to do that. And so someone sent that speech that I wrote to HarperCollins, and they called me in and they said, we want you to write a book. And I said, hang on a second. Book is not on my bucket list. My husband spell checks my grocery list. None of my emails have punctuation. And they said, if you write the book like you wrote the speech, we'll fix the punctuation for you. And so they said on October 15th, you have until December 30th to write your book. And I said, okay, because I knew nothing about writing a book. And I sat down for 2 months and I wrote a book. And what I did was I wrote from the heart. I wrote what it was like to get that call, to be told that your child was going to be different and that your life was going to be different, and how I was absolutely scared and petrified and remorseful because I had yelled at a child for 10 years who had no idea why I was yelling at him. But the book is also about how I learned to like myself better and like myself better as a person, because my son runs downstairs with his shirt on backwards, and I say, hey, bud, you got to flip it around. And he says, I like the decal better on the back, on the front. And I think, wow, if I could just live like that, how different life would be. And the blessing is that we live in this world that makes us believe that there's perfect children, and there is no perfect children. And I was drowning. My kids' accomplishments were my only report card as a mother, and I was failing. I had a daughter who had 4 best friends that were straight A's. She was happy for them, didn't influence her 1 ounce. They weren't the best in sports, they weren't musical, but the one thing that happened during this whole process was a psychologist who called me in for my daughter, and the teacher in the meeting said, don't change anything about your daughter. She loves life, she loves people, she's good to people. She's gonna do fine in life. And it took that woman saying that to me to realize that wasn't the most important thing in life. The most important thing in life was that we raised happy, good kids. And that's what I was doing all along, and there would never be a report card for that. So Grant is a lesson to me, and that's what the book's about. That he isn't gonna grow up to go to the college that brings him the most esteem. He's not gonna grow up to get the job that pays him the most amount of money. He's gonna grow up and do what he absolutely loves. And isn't that what we want as parents? We want our kids to grow up to be good people. We want them to grow up to do what they love. Telling my story was for me to make sure that people understood Grant, that they gave him that chance that he deserved, the chance that kids with Asperger's 30 years didn't get because they were different and they were pushed into special education programs. I have to thank all of you tonight, because I went to my IEP meeting yesterday, and I have to tell you, I was caught off guard. I usually am prepared for that. I'm usually prepared, but he's in the 6th grade, and that's a whole different set of rules with hormones and Asperger's, and a very outgoing Asperger child who's a little like his dad, who doesn't have any trouble talking when it comes to a microphone or a crowd. But the thing is, if you had not done your work, and you had not persevered and pushed forward and made people understand that your children deserve the right to be treated like any other child, I wouldn't be given that chance with Grant. And I'm so proud of what you do and the chance that Grant's been able to get, and that Grant's been able to go into a school and have friends and teachers that understand what he's doing, and camps to be able to go to, and kids who are graduating from college now who want to go back and help those kids who didn't get a chance. Because without you doing this, and without you, Martha, I wouldn't be able to stand up here and be the cheerleader for the next generation of parents who are coming through. Because I look at the parents now who fought so hard to get their kids where they are now, and now they're fighting the next period of their life to be able for our kids to be able to live those productive lives, self-sufficient lives that they weren't able to get that chance to do long ago. So thank you for gathering. Thank you for doing all that you do to help kids like that and help kids like mine, because believe me, what you do in that school affects what happens at home and what happens in life in general when they move on. So thank you.
Shonda, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere yet. Amazing words, Shonda Schilling, tonight, for being so honest and heartfelt. But we do have some breaking news. On the telephone, someone who wanted to say hello to you tonight. Hello?
Hello?
Is this Kurt on the phone?
This is Kurt from the car.
Heard in the car. Well, you have your wife's attention, the entire ballroom here at the Seaport Hotel in Boston.
Hello, honey.
Did you put the kids in bed yet?
Hell no. So I guess it's bitterly ironic that I'm doing this because the people in the crowd will get a little insight into how for 19 years we said goodnight to each other more nights than not, and how I called to find out how the kids were doing and how the latest grand episode went. And it was not until I came home and retired that I fully grasped what an amazing woman God had blessed and put in my life. I'm incredibly sorry that I can't be there. I love you more than life itself, and I wanted to take a moment to make sure the people in that audience understand what a special, incredible woman you are. Almost 20 years ago, I was walking through a mall in what I thought was a really cool-looking sweatsuit, and I happened into a Foot Locker and saw this really pretty blonde girl, and went home and told my roommate I had met my wife. And 22 years later, I thank God every night for being able to lay down next to this incredible, amazing woman. And her mom, Patsy, is out in the audience, and her father, Don, is out in the audience, and they have done just an amazing job to raise such an incredible woman and to have me be a part of this family. I don't know where to begin. Let me first off, Mr. Brennan and Dr. Petner, congratulations on an amazing award from an incredible organization. Martha, I don't know if you understand how much I appreciate you being able to differentiate a Yankee fan and a Republican, but thank you for that. Bob, Larry, Connie, the authors of Chapter 766. It's not often in this country that we actually are happy celebrating the 40th birthday of anything, but this is something to celebrate. The Federation for Children is an organization that has allowed my wife and I to begin raising our son in a manner fit and in a way that he deserves. Your hard work, your diligence at a time and a place in this country when it wasn't probably a popular initiative. I don't believe you're passing the torch. I just believe that we're going to take it anyway and continue to push and fight along with the others to continue fighting for our kids' rights and their ability to be human beings, to have the dignity and the respect and the integrity that we all wish on all of our kids. A lot of people don't understand that Asperger's is not like an illness. It's not like the cold, the measles, the mumps, or the flu. You don't get it and then they diagnose you. There are years and years and years of the condition before a diagnosis, and I had no idea what I was dealing with. And, number one, because I wasn't home, and number two, because I was in a society that made me believe that kids just needed to be taught respect. When I got exposure into what my wife was going through on a daily basis, I was overwhelmed by a couple things. Number one, an enormous sense of guilt on my behalf for her, and my thoughts that maybe it was something that she had done, which I always knew it wasn't, and also the fact that I had ever raised my voice to a boy who didn't want anything other than to be himself. And when the world, and I don't want to say the world comes crashing down, because I'm sure my wife would tell you and has told you, we are blessed beyond anybody's wildest dreams. Had we sat down 22 years ago and been able to script a dream life, there's no possible way we could have come up with the things that we were able to do. But baseball gave us a window and a little insight into my wife. About 12 years ago, for those of you that don't know, she was diagnosed with cancer. Out of her diagnosis came she is now cancer-free, and the Shade Foundation exists. And Sue Gorham is in the audience tonight as well. Yes. And I mention that for this reason. Less than 2 weeks after the foundation was created, I was at the ballpark, and the Shade Foundation had created a screening process. And 2 people that night were diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma, who had no idea they were even ill. Those 2 people are still alive today, and they're alive today because my wife took an event in her life that she could have kept to herself and wanted to change the world with it. And this whole thing, this book, this life, these speeches, this is no different. I had the honor and the privilege of being with her on some of the book tour sites, and to watch her tell and talk to mothers, and to begin to understand that as much as I am a man and I want to be the man of the house, I'll never actually be in charge here, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing, because what she's done in her short period of time on this earth will be here far after I'm gone, and to know that woman is my wife, and to know that I get to spend my life with her is a blessing that I can't begin to thank. And I try to. I really do. And I know she's probably smirking right now, but I am so blessed to be a part of this, to watch this unfold. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get better. Unfortunately, I think Grant and I share more traits than Shonda would like. I am not shy. You can tell I'm not shy about talking, but I'm passionate, and I believe what I say. And I'm in love with that woman for all the reasons you just heard. And I'm thankful that organizations like this, that are changing the world, that are making the world a better place for our kids to live, are recognizing my wife for being someone who is changing the world with the opportunities she's given. So, again, thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there, Shonda. I love you more than you'll ever know, and I'm so unbelievably proud of you. Awards like this trump any World Series ring or trophy we'll ever put in this house. So thank you all tonight. Honey, I love you. God bless, and have a great night.